And our top story tonight, the body of the young woman who was savagely gang raped in India 2 weeks ago is being flown home after she died in Singapore early this morning. The 23-year-old had undergone emergency treatment for 2 days at Mount Elizabeth Hospital but succumbed to her injuries. She was raped by several men on a moving bus in New Delhi, and they beat her with a metal rod, which media reports say was also used in the rape, causing severe internal trauma. She was then thrown out of the vehicle. And here's what officials in Singapore and India had to say after her death.
The family, of course, is shattered by this development. At the same time, they realize that the best possible medical attention was provided to her. And in the end, it was the scale of her injuries which proved too much for the medical treatment which was provided to her to overcome.
This patient had very, very extensive injuries to start with, and she had really no intestines left in her body. And with such 3 major operations and so much of invasion of the body, her chances of survival to start with also were limited.
And our reporter Imelda Saad joins us now with the latest. Imelda, what do you have for us?
Well, Dom, any moment now before the victim's body is sent home, the Indian High Commission arranged for a chartered Air India flight to take the woman back. At about 9 p.m, her body was moved from the funeral parlour of Hindu Cascade after being embalmed. It's on its way to Changi Airport's cargo complex. Now, we understand that the victim's parents and brothers are also there. Now, she had arrived at Mount Elizabeth Hospital on Thursday for treatment in what was described as extremely critical condition. We're told that Mount Elizabeth was chosen as it's known for its organ transplant procedures. The woman's condition took a turn for the worse late last night. Officials from the Indian High Commission and her family members kept vigil. At about 4:45 a.m, she died. The hospital's chief executive officer, Dr. Kelvin Loh, said the woman suffered severe organ failure after serious injuries to her body and brain. She had been looked after by a multidisciplinary team of specialists here, but many following this story have asked if it was the best thing to do to move a very sick patient to another country for treatment. Now, at a media conference this afternoon, the High Commissioner of India to Singapore defended the decision to have her flown here. Hetu Ms. Fira was there and has the details.
Formalities to get the victim's body flown back to India were done promptly. At a news conference later, the High Commissioner of India to Singapore took questions on whether the decision to airlift the victim here had affected her condition further, and if it was a political decision to quell the unrest in India. Dr. Raghavan gave the assurance that the decision was made with the intent of giving the victim the best medical care possible.
The medical decision to shift her to Singapore followed consultations between the medical team treating her in Delhi with the surgeons and physicians in Singapore. So they must have come to a conclusion about the facilities available and as to how those facilities would provide the best possible medical treatment to her.
Dr. Raghavan declined to give details on the victim's identity, citing the family's request for privacy. He did say, though, that the family are Hindus and they live in Delhi.
And I will say that they have borne this loss with a great deal of courage and fortitude and understanding. They have repeatedly asked me to say that how inspired they are by the many messages of support and condolence they have received. And also this reinforces their view that the death of their child will lead to a better future for women in India and in Delhi.
Following news of her death, some members of the Indian community and the general public have turned up here at the High Commission of India to offer their condolences and to write notes of support to the family. At least one of them left this message, hoping that her death will not be in vain.
We demand from the government, we demand from the authorities to really, give justice, not in this case, but in every single case out there, and also try and stop this. The laws are there, they need to be enforced properly, and that's not been done.
She suffered a lot. I don't know her. I've never seen her. But she's like every common woman on the street. It's not whatever was done, whatever happened to her should not have happened.
Singapore's Foreign Affairs Ministry says it's saddened to learn of her death and extends its deepest condolences to the family.
Imelda, the death has sparked outrage in India and shock elsewhere in the world, but what are people here in Singapore saying about this?
Well, many have offered words of sympathy for the 23-year-old on social media and highlighted her courageous fight to the end. As of 9 p.m. today, Channel News Asia Singapore's Facebook page had garnered more than 1,400 comments on her death. Lin Lei called for justice so that similar cases will be deterred, while Rajiv Ravindran said he hopes India and other nations will unite to fight against acts of violence against women and bring the perpetrators to justice. Felix Chua hopes that this tragedy will be a catalyst for change for women in India. Now, Singapore's Minister of State for Social and Family Development, Halimah Yacob, also wrote a heartfelt post on her Facebook page. She said there are lessons to be learned from such a tragedy and that conversations about such things also reflect the values and thoughts about the position of women in society. She added that education and better employment opportunities as well as an effective justice system have raised the standing of Singaporean women in society. But Madam Halimah said while the situation in Singapore is nowhere close to that of many societies in Asia, the country has room to improve. Dom.
All right, thank you so much, Imelda, for those updates. And in India, police have charged the 6 suspects in the case with murder. And this means they face a maximum penalty of death if they're convicted. The rape victim's death has brought people out onto the streets of New Delhi and other cities. And as day turned into night, silent marches turned into candlelight processions. Security forces in Delhi are on edge, fearing fresh unrest. They've turned the capital into a fortress in a bid to head off any violence. The outpourings of emotion today have been largely peaceful, but the city's chief minister, Sheila Dixit, wasn't spared public scorn. Arriving at the Jantar Mantar site to pay homage to the dead woman, she was immediately heckled by the crowd. Earlier, she had given this reaction to the death of the woman who's also been dubbed India's daughter by local media.
She fought very courageously, and in the process shook our conscience. It is a shameful moment for me, just not as a chief minister, but also as a citizen of this great city.
Indian leaders have been appealing for calm and once again promised that justice will be done.
To all of you who have stood vigil, who have expressed your anger, your anguish publicly, who have poured out in her support, I want to assure you that your voice has been heard. As a woman and mother, I understand how you feel.
जो घटना हुई है वो हमारे लिए बहुत ही दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। इस लड़की की जो मौत हुई है, इसके कारण पूरा देश आज सदमा में है। ये क्यों हुआ, इसका कारण क्या है, इसमें निश्चित रूप से हमको सोचना पड़ेगा। पुलिस रिफॉर्म के बारे में और जुडिशियल रिफॉर्म के बारे में तुरंत सोचना होगा।
I'm heartbroken for because the kind of struggle she put up to survive. It is, I can only assure the family that the government will take whatever steps are needed to ensure that our killers get the harshest punishment in the quickest of time.
The gang rape has galvanized people across India, with thousands holding almost daily demonstrations since the attack. The case has heightened calls for greater gender equality in the country.